Hello, friends. Hello, hello. My name is Janessa Oriel, and I'm the head of seller enablement here at Amy. And I wanted to be able to do a quick live to be able to ask the question, what would you like some additional training on with the remaining lives that we have left? So, as you know, I'm just going and clicking through. As you know, there's Amy is closing down on August 31st, and there's not that many lives left. I actually won't be going live right to the end of August, and so I wanted to know what would be beneficial to you. We are so, for example, something that we were thinking of: would it be helpful to go through after exporting your CSV? Then what does that look like in a free service like using Google Drive and using the Excel function within Google Drive to be able to manage your information, to be able to look up information? I can do a little tutorial on that. Would it be helpful to go ahead and see how to make sure, do you want me to show you the contact form? Caroline says, yes, please. So I presume that's the Google and the using Excel with the data. I'm happy to do that. I'll probably save that for next week, but I'd love suggestions, questions, comments, concerns down in the comments so that way we can bring you what would be most beneficial to you and to your business with the remaining time that you have with Amy. So I would be happy to do that. I also want to make sure that you are reaching out to our customer service, our support, as opposed to reaching out to individuals directly. So I've been getting some comments to me directly, and that's not as helpful because I am one person and my ability to check that is diminished currently. So a tutorial for Google Drive. Yes to all help, please. Exporting and alternative services. Sherry, we are having conversation. Lori says, COVID on Mother's Day and losing Amy on my birthday. What's next? So sad for you guys. We're going to be okay. Yes, and I am. It's unfortunate that it falls on your birthday. That's, I think, the worst. But yes, so I will provide. We'll go through being able to manage and manipulate a CSV export next week for sure. I will put that on the docket, and we'll make sure to dig in and do the nitty gritty, and I'll answer any questions that you have. But if you have questions or if you've tried it already and you have some questions, drop them in the comments. Like, how do I find a comment or something to that effect? Or another question could be, how do I manage samples? Knowing that those don't export out, for example. My quick tip is you actually just list your samples in the notes in the time. So any note or any samples that you give out from this point forward, you put them in the notes and then those do export, which is exciting. And yes, we are still researching additional services. So we're looking at other services that are similar or as similar as can be and evaluating those. And our goal is to be able to provide those recommendations. They may not come before the end of these lives. They may come after that. I'm not entirely sure, but we will make sure to have some communication there. Caroline, I've exported, but actually I'm still very much using Amy, so you'll wait until the last day. It's totally okay to export today. And then I've mentioned this a few times, but it's worth mentioning again. I feel like we can mention it over and over. When you're interacting with your customers, still have them fill out the Amy contact form, because if there's any old information within Amy and your customer fills out that form, it'll actually update that information. So when you export for the last time, you will have the most up-to-date information. So that Amy contact form is worth its weight in gold. Doesn't actually weigh anything, but you're getting what I'm saying. So Terry is asking, my subscriptions to finished August 8th. Am I going to be charged for the whole year? We'll be able to cancel on August 30th. Please connect with our support team, because there's like specific dates that are associated, and I don't necessarily know those timeframes and those dates, but there should be no more year subscription charges at this point in time for obvious reasons. Let's see, what am I seeing? Exporting the contacts was easy. Thanks for that. Absolutely. Happy to hear that. Knowing Amy is going makes me realize how much I use it on the go from my phone. Oh, hang on. Things are scrolling. It's moving faster than I can. on my phone, finding addresses, looking up product info, etc. Going to be lost without it. You're not going to be lost. You're going to be okay, Carrie. We're going to make sure that you're okay. All right. We'll figure out how to make all that happen. Kelly says, I exported my contacts and I've been going. Why is everything? This is really making things challenging. I keep scrolling when I'm reading. And I've been going through a chunk a day, checking Amy and making note of what products they bought while you still can. Absolutely. Also, for our friends who have been logging things from your back office system, and I recognize some companies' back office systems just turned over, and so you may not have historical data. I get that and I understand, and that's challenging. But ideally, your back office system will still have your customer's purchase history. Let's see, what else do we have? Lots of comments. Hearing recommendations on alternatives will be very useful. That's the goal. I'm going through and invoicing. I'm just going to go here. Irene's still in shock. Friend? Me too. Still settling in. Lots of transitions. And a friend shared something about cocooning and transformations, right? From like caterpillar to butterfly. And we're definitely in that cocooning phase, right? In terms of things are changing and life changes, and we can do it. I can do it. You can do it. I promise. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and that's okay. Can you please recap the contact form? Is there a fast way of sending everyone in one go, or do you have to send individually to each contact? Carrie, I love this question. Let me go ahead and set my phone up briefly, so that way I can show you. You cannot send it to everyone in one go. However, if you have a pardon, doing the things on the phone, you'll see it shortly. If you have the ability to, if you have like a group, like a Facebook group, or you have somewhere where you can share information out, maybe you have a mailing group. I mean, we don't recommend doing like a big mass mailing group, but if you have that, you can email a link out. So the contact form is just a link. It's a web link. You can share that to whomever you would like to. So let me go ahead and get my phone here. And so you should be able to see my phone. And there it is. Okay, so my phone's here. So if you wanted to share or if you wanted to share your contact form out right now, it's really easy to do because it's just a link. So you would go ahead and go to the account tab, lower right hand corner. You'd go to contact form. You'd go to contact form again, and you can view it. If you view it, it's going to pop it up, or you can share it and it'll actually just copy. So you can copy it. So now it's copied to my clipboard. I can share that anywhere. So I can share it if you have a group of all your customers or your hosts. You can go ahead and share that and say, I would really appreciate it. My services are changing. If you can please go in and update the information here, enter your information here. Amy's really smart and will automatically recognize when it's the same person filling out the form, and we'll just update that contact with the current information. So Brenda, I don't have any additional details from what support has shared on refunds for those who have Amy for a few months or on the Pro plan. That is all coming from support because there's a variety of reasons. So if you've written to support@amy.co, they have answers for you to the best of their knowledge as we go through this. And so Carrie's saying, oh great, I can do that on the WhatsApp broadcast. Yes, you can. Yep, absolutely. Just use the link for sure. Our back office shows previous orders, but with no search function, we literally have to look through each order and it takes ages. I recognize, Caroline. I'm very sorry. It's challenging. But adding things that if you add things and go ahead and put them in the notes section, or if you create like a category or labels, those labels do export. So for example, if we're talking like a category in terms of colors, people who like red, you can go ahead and put that, and that does export. So then as you're going forward, if something red comes out, you have the ability to search for those that are there. Sheila will miss the labels. You've been using since 2019, didn't cross over to another function that she's doing, or another service that she's using, but all the notes did. That's cool. How do we download all the samples we gave them? So Irene, that's a good question. What I would recommend is you don't have, I'm going to hit OK there. And then Again, you can paste that link anywhere. Let me go back and just share my face because I'll distract myself with my phone. There we go. So what I recommend is you can actually, if you're talking like samples that you gave in 2019, let's be real, if they haven't used it or tried it or bought it, then they're probably not going to, right? We want to be really, really mindful of what is appropriate and relevant to move over instead of moving everything over. Because if you move everything over, if you list every sample you've ever given them, it's probably not as relevant as if you just focus on what you've recently given, and you want to make sure to follow up on those. And then you can go ahead and say either yes, they like this category of product, or no, they don't, right? But if you're going back and listing every single sample, that's a lot of information and not sure. And if you have a use for that, that's awesome. And if you give them like a secondary sample of the same thing, and they say, yes, I love it, then great. And if they say, no, I don't love it, then you can note either of those choices so you know what to give them in the future. Scrolling back down. Let's see. So just lots of things, great ideas. Okay, perfect. So to recap, what I want to know is what in our remaining lives, there's a few lives left. Okay. I would love to know, we're going to go next week. We'll go through, because this week we talked about that contact form and being able to share it out. And then from next week, we'll talk about how to manage and manipulate that information using Google's Drive. So you're going to export your CSV, import it into a Google Drive. And then we'll talk about how to quickly find, if you wanted to find something with the word pineapple in it, I say that because we have our Pineapple Crown store, right? Then you can go ahead. How do you use shortcuts to do things like that? How do you sort information? How do you make sure that, how do you find everybody with a red label, for example? You can go ahead and we can talk all about Excel next week because oddly enough, I really like Excel. I'm kind of a nerd. I love it. Can you search for customers by date range? Brought in the last year, for example. I can focus on cleaning that data first. Yes, let me show you briefly. Back to my phone. We're going to go into contacts, so contacts down here, and then we're going to go sort by, this says default best match. What we're going to do is most recently added. You can do that, for example, there, and this will say these are the ones that are most recently added. Okay. The other option is you can filter. Actually, hang on, let me clear this because we'll just do default here. You can filter, okay? And then you can also look at last purchased, last contacted. So you can always do last purchased. I love this. I love this for quarterly, like looking at who bought last quarter when you want them to buy this quarter kind of thing. And then you can also look and see who's never purchased from you. You can apply that. So I have 5 contacts. I'm going to hit apply again. These are the 5 contacts that have never purchased. So, I mean, myself with red hair. But you can go through and you can actually list and look at these individuals and connect with them and see if they are interested in purchasing, or however you want to manage that information. But you absolutely can filter and utilize these filters to be able to pull information and names and things like that. And so when you have that information exported, you can also take a look at that. Okay. An export, I believe, shows the last purchase date. I think that's for everyone. I will get a firm answer before next week. But I say that because if you, for example, are jumping into another service that is doing a follow-up system, you want to know their last purchase date. Okay. Can you share what you utilize to share your phone screen during the live? I can share that right now. I've been using the same thing since 2017, and it's called, so the phone is shared through Air Server, Apple Air Server, and then this screen here is done through a program called OBS, and it's Open Broadcast Software, I believe is what OBS stands for. And that's what I use for my setup. It's and then and Tammy's asking, what program do you recommend for everyone? I don't have an answer to that as of right now. We're going through and vetting different companies, and so we will share that. The goal is to share that in advance of our close date, but I don't have a formal answer to be able to share right here, right now. Okay. So I appreciate that question, and we will address it as soon as we have the answer to it. All right. Thanks, friends. appreciate you joining in and catching the updates, and again, sharing anything else you would like to learn about. Again, next week will be a deep dive into Excel and being able to manage and manipulate data within Excel and filter and sort and so forth and so on. And prep it for if you're moving to another service that can take a either an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV. I will show you how to make all that work, okay? Shaylin, it's Amy is closing because we are out of funding. So, yes. So that will be next week's deep dive. And if there's any questions that I can answer, of course, I will always do my very best to answer them. And we are absolutely working to help make sure that we can help transition you as well in your business so that way you have great tools and solutions. Okay. Thank you. I will see you next week where we'll get geeky. Bye, guys.